Hello, ladies and gentlemen, graphic novel gurus, and fanboys and girls from around the globe. This is yet another episode of the Vigilant Geek podcast. My name is Andrew PUZAK of Vigilant Geek Media, and with me, as always, is...
HOLDEN ORME of Vigilant Geek Media. Andrew, we have special guests today.
We are lucky enough to have a couple special guests with us for a very special episode today, in which we are going to discuss all things involving the silver screen. Now, with us again is New England stand-up comic and owner-operator of Hotcast Studios, Nathan Burke.
That's me. I'm just hanging around.
He hangs around. That's, that's his thing. And we also have special guest, New England stand-up comic and movie aficionado, Mark Gallagher.
That's me.
Hello, Mark.
I'm dangling. I'm not hanging. I'm dangling.
Well,
Dangling loosely.
the angle of your dangle is proportionate to however that goes.
something horror, something shit. Horse shit. Proportionate horse shit. Horse shit.
We'll go with
Horse
that.
shit.
Horse shit. So, we're going to discuss all different types of films today. Obviously, since it's the Vigilant Geek, we will discuss comic book movies, but we won't just limit ourselves to that. We got many films within the sci-fi, horror, comedy, animated genres, crime dramas, all those genres that we're gonna cover all that today for you. And I think it might be appropriate for us to start with some of our favorite comic book films, since they have become so popular over the past 5 years or so. 5 to 10.
Yep, that's right. It's been the genre's really picked up steam over the past 10 years with the technology and whatnot. So
yeah, Holden makes a good point. We mentioned back in our Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast in episode 3 about how these comic book films have finally been able to provide justice to the source material due to advancements in CGI and what have you. So now we get these great movies with the special effects that you wouldn't have seen 20, 30 years ago, which brings us,
I think Iron Man started it.
Well, yeah.
Iron Man's to blame.
Iron Man was definitely the pioneer franchise for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, for
I
sure.
think Iron Man started where we are right now. I feel like there are different tiers. Like, if you want to go way back when, the first movie that really kind of went, hey, you can do this, was Superman, the first Richard Donner Superman.
Right.
And Superman had been on TV before that, and in serials even before that. But I think that was like one of the first movies. Oh, nope. This doesn't count. But Batman, with Adam West. Because they had a theatrical... it came out before the TV show.
oh, that's when all the villains vaporized the UN.
Yes. Yeah, it's called Batman the movie.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's a classic.
But that was like really hammy, tongue-in-cheek. It was the first Superman, Richard Donner, that took the comics seriously, and that was like the beginning of it.
Well,
and then
you could also make a point for Tim Burton's Batman.
yeah, that was the next level. I would say Superman was the first one, and it'd be hard up to think of anything in between that and Batman, but I'm sure there's something. It was that Batman that really, it was like just on the cusp of 1990.
Well, yeah, as far as taking the comics genre seriously for film, but I don't feel that it really got its chops until X-Men.
Yep, that's the next tier right there.
Because Superman and Batman are really good at punching things.
Yes, yeah.
And to depict people being punched good, like they mastered that, but they hadn't got to the point where like, well, Cyclops shoots beams out of his eyes.
Yeah.
Pew!
Right. So, some of those things you can't do with the more basic special effects techniques that they used back then. So that's obviously with the CGI came those
changed everything.
Exactly. Yeah.
Those first two X-Men were great.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I really feel like that X-Men film that came out was really the one that really kind of got the ball rolling for everybody.
Yeah. It was around the same time as Blade, but Blade was more kind of fringe. Like it was R-rated. It didn't kind of hit the demographic that they sell to.
Yeah, it took the general idea, and then it was just like, all right, now find out how to put swears and sex in it.
Yeah.
And then they're like, okay, well here's your swears and sex. Like,
there you go.
All right, we're gonna work with this.
It's got a great moment though with who's the dude with the beard? He plays Whistler.
Donald Logue? Is that what you're talking about? Oh.
Yeah, that is a bearded guy, but the guy who plays Whistler.
Oh, Chris Christopherson.
Yes,
yeah.
I love the scene when you think, all right, Blade's done. I guess he dies, even though it's halfway through. Guess it's just a short movie and it's a sad ending. But then the wall blows open. And you forgot, oh yeah, Whistler, what was he doing this whole time? Cocks a shotgun, he goes, "Catch you fuckers at a bad time." I like that moment. That was a good moment.
That's a great catchphrase.
Oh yeah, it was good.
I can't believe there's a guy named Chris Christopherson.
I know.
That sounds so fake.
I know.
His daughter's an actress too. The only film I can think of that she was in was The Faculty.
Who's she in that?
She's kind of like the gothic girl, kind of like the outcast girl.
I've seen her in a few things. I didn't
Christina
know that was
Christopherson.
Yeah.
Wow, little originality right there.
Christet.
Man, if you get into a normal conversation about these people with anybody else, they're like, dude, quit lying to me.
Yeah.
What, you think I'm an idiot? Oh, yeah, Chris Christopherson comes in with his daughter, Christina Christopherson. Get out of my face. Quit insulting my intelligence.
It sounds like characters from a Dr. Seuss book or something. I don't know.
I can't cite exactly what I've seen her in stuff though. A couple of things. But
yeah, it hasn't. It won't register in my head either. But that's one thing is The Faculty. I remember that being a pretty. I mean, for what it was definitely one of those like angsty high school teen horror movies.
Was Jon Stewart in that?
He was.
Yeah,
science teacher.
I remember that being because I remember. It was early Daily Show, and he was like
just
talking
started.
about it.
Yeah.
What was that, like 2000?
Yeah, it was around then, 2001.
Yeah, right.
Right around that time, and
it was like one of two movies Jon Stewart ever did. It was like that and
Big Daddy.
Oh, Big Daddy and
Half-Baked.
And
he was in Half-Baked. He did
the Smoochie.
Oh yeah,
he had a more serious role in that.
Oh, and he was in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. He. In these early days on The Daily Show, he seemed to like take advantage of the fame he got from that show to get all over the place because who knew where that show was going to go? So he was like, "Oh, I'm going to just try to span my career," and then The Daily Show picked up and he was like, "Oh, I just need this."
No,
Yeah.
and then 9/11 happened and he became like, and like his live like 9/11 was the best thing that ever happened to Jon Stewart.
Like we saw debris and he saw dollar signs.
We live in a capitalist society, I guess. I don't know.
I think he would be very upset if he heard us saying. But the Faculty was a movie that came out. There was like a theme of movies. These were like sci-fi offshoots of Scream. You know, like there was The Faculty, and there was Disturbing Behavior was another very Faculty-esque movie.
What about Jeepers Creepers?
Yeah, kinda. Yeah. Jeepers Creepers directed by a child molester. Yeah, same guy who directed Powder.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he made a movie back in the day. He molested a little kid. He went to jail for it.
That was recent news, right?
And then
no, it's
okay.
No, it's an old hat.
I guess they're what? I think they just talked about that recently on like another podcast. And the only
Child
reason
molestation?
No, that guy who did Powder. And the only reason I know that somebody, I guess that like popped up on my news feed. I don't know.
That's why I'm thinking it was.
Oh, maybe it's
news.
resurfaced, but I mean, it is kind of an older story. Like when Powder came out, the family of the molested kid protested the movie, and people just didn't pay attention.
Wait, what? Because
Powder
what was
so
the
good.
the guy who like played Powder was the one who was molested actually? By
No.
no.
The writer director whose name I forget, also the writer director of Jeepers Creepers. He made a movie way back when, like in the late 80s, and on the set of that, he diddled a youngster, and he served his time and everything, and he just kind of got back in the industry. Nowadays, couldn't happen. Like, there would be a big Facebook outrage, and the guy wouldn't have a career, you know?
What the funniest thing to me about you saying diddle the youngster, because back in like the 80s, early 90s in pro wrestling, that's what they used to call jobbers, like the people who lost all the time.
What'd they call
like
them?
Youngsters.
Oh, okay.
So girl on the spoon be like, look at this youngster.
It always comes back to wrestling for you, Nathan.
Yeah, I know. That's all I wanted to say about it.
That's a good way to live, though. You got priorities and hobbies.
Those are my roots.
The ladies love a man with hobbies.
The ladies love a man that likes to watch other men wrestle with other men in their underwear.
So that she can watch other men, too. Together.
Yeah, it's really just for her, if
Right,
anything.
right.
You know?
I'm just a good lover, I guess.
Well, we're not getting super specific. I think we were just talking about how you liked wrestling. We need to change the subject.
Well, I suppose I can get us back on the rails here. Now, Mark brought up a very good point, and the Richard Donner Supermans 1 and 2 are on my list for comic book flicks for sure.
Oh yeah.
They're both done for their time. They were done extremely well. They stayed true to the source material very, very well. Christopher Reeve was the perfect Superman. It's even debatable today whether Henry Cavill can compare to Christopher Reeve, just because he was the Man of Steel.
Well, he was the heir apparent. Like, didn't his grandfather played Superman on TV?
They have a similar name. No, it's just a similar name.
They're not related.
Really?
It's very weird coincidence, but it's George Reeve or I forget which one has the S, but it's I think it's George Reeve and Christopher Reeves or George Reeves and Christopher Reeve. I always fuck that up, but it's just a weird coincidence. And another weird coincidence is that they both suffered from very bad tragedies. Both of those guys.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Richard Donner Supermans are amazing, and there was a lot of struggle. Like Richard Donner, those movies are produced by the Salkinds. It was like a father-son duo, like a kind of like a Eurotrash family.
But those were like MGM movies, right? Or were they Universal?
What's the logo when those open?
I'm not quite
sure. Is it the Earth? Because that's Universal.
Well, no, it's
or is it the Lion? Because that's MGM.
It has to be Warner Brothers, doesn't it?
Actually, I believe it would have to be. Yeah.
Yeah, it would definitely have to be Warner
two?
Brothers. Yeah. Yeah, it was Warner Brothers. Yeah. All of us were kind of asleep on that one. Yeah.
Totally was.
Warner Brothers. Yeah.
I haven't seen it.
Well, in my opinion, the first Superman, they did a great job. Gene Hackman was, in my opinion, a very awesome Lex Luthor.
Oh, he's incredible.
He's
yeah,
the best Lex Luthor we'll ever see.
Yeah.
And then in Superman 2, they did a really good job with Zod, and the Kryptonians. But then you get to Superman 3 and 4.
Oh, forget it. Yeah.
And that's where I got lost. I didn't get lost because there wasn't much in the ways of like a decent plot, but it lost me. It lost my attention. Richard Pryor was this computer hacker.
Yeah, he makes kryptonite out of cigarettes.
Yeah. And I don't know. The story was a little bogus. And then the Quest for Peace, Superman 4. I don't know. It was just.
Was that the one when Lex Luthor manufactures his own Superman from the piece of hair that was holding the weight up in the Smithsonian?
Yeah,
that's it.
That's kind of a cool idea. I kind of like that movie.
No, it's not a bad premise. It's basically Bizarro,
right.
But the reason that 3 and 4 are bad is because of the Salkinds. Like Richard Donner struggled when he was making that first movie, fighting back and forth to make a good movie because they wanted to have a bunch of TV star cameos, what's his name, Kojak. They wanted him to come in the Superman would fly by him and he would go, "Who loves you, baby?"
Oh, jeez.
They wanted that in the movie, and Richard Donner was like, "Well, no, you hired me, so I'm not making a piece of shit." and they shot that original screenplay. They hired Mario Puzo to write the original screenplay, and then I forget the name. There was like a script doctor that came in and kind of fixed everything up, but it was a big chunk of meat, and they were like, all right, this is 2 movies. In the original ending of both movies is him spinning around the world, but they didn't. So they shot him back to back, and they needed to. The date was coming up for them to release the first Superman, so they needed to finish production on that. So they halted production on 2, finished the first one, released it, and then once the first one was done, they fired Richard Donner. But he shot most of Superman 2.
So that's why Superman 2 is good.
Well, there you have
That's
it.
why it's kind of good.
Oh.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen the Richard Donner cut?
No.
There's a Richard Donner cut of the movie because he shot like 90% of the movie. And because they brought in another director, in order to comply with the Directors Guild, technically you need to shoot 51% of the film. So they needed to shoot a ton of new footage. They kept what they could from Richard Donner's up to 50%, or 49%, and then they had to shoot a bunch of new stuff. That's when you get the fucking S coming off his chest.
Oh, yeah.
The new director they hired, I think his name's Mark Lester. He directed the third one, so it shows you on his own what kind of fucking movie he can make. So he fucked up Richard Donner's Superman, and then he made trashy Superman 3. Then they sold the rights to Canon, which is like the worst movie company at the time.
Yeah.
And they made Superman 4. It just kept going to Margot Kidder in Superman 4? Oh my, what happened?
Yeah.
her like bottom jaws trembling and hanging off, and she's like 50 years older, even though it's been like 10 years.
There wasn't like a 20-year exodus after that. Like Superman, another
they
Superman
gave
wasn't
up.
made for 20 years.
Yeah.
And there was that one that Tim Burton was going to direct, and Kevin Smith wrote the script for it, and they had Nicolas Cage casted.
Yeah.
Everyone's seen those pictures online too. They are so hilarious.
It's gross.
It was going to be what I think would have been a beautiful disaster.
Yeah.
like Batman and Robin. Everyone shits on Batman and Robin. We live in a world where we get to have that movie. We have Batman.
Yeah.
The silver Batman. and Arnold Schwarzenegger plays Mr. We live in that world. This is an alternate universe where like we're sitting down right now going, oh my god, what if there was a Nicolas Cage Superman? There's another universe where they're like, wouldn't it be crazy if George Clooney played Batman?
Yeah.
Well, I think if the
the
script
Iceman
was good,
cometh.
if they made a better script,
party, chill out.
if they made a better script, I could see like a kind of like a movie starring George Clooney as Batman in
He
the
could have
form
been
of
a
kind of
good-
like
yeah.
Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns.
Yeah.
George Clooney's old enough to make that movie now, and like he's a good actor.
Yeah.
But I think we're gonna end up getting in that with Ben Affleck.
Yeah, this seems where they're headed because he's supposedly already an older-ish Batman. He looks great. There was like a studio screening, got a standing ovation, but it could have been people just jerking their bosses off.
Yeah.
Well, it was probably half and half.
Yeah.
I mean, people are about as passionate about Batman as some people are passionate about Jesus.
Yeah.
Especially nowadays. Yeah. Not sure where I was going with that.
But yeah, the Superman series just really, that first one's great, and then after that, there's so much tragedy. Oh, and the thing about the Richard Donner cut, someone went in, took all the footage that they had that they'd never used, and recut the movie, and then filled in that last 10% with like screening footage and stuff like that, like when they're just doing test screening.
Is this something you can pick a hard copy of?
Yeah.
Up? Like you can buy this?
Yeah, it's not like a weird internet bootleg or anything. You can get it in stores, and it's great. It's a way better movie. If you like the second one, then you'll love the Richard Donner cut. It's Zod is so much more serious. It's scarier. Like there's a lot of comedy, and that's what Mark Lester. I think his name's Mark. I know his last name's Lester. That's what he was kind of known for. Was like he's like a British comedy director. There's not as much humor in the second one, which is good. There's fuck humor.
Aren't you a comedian?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know exactly.
We're
It's like-
talking about movies right now.
Well, I think that your point can be valid for a story such as Superman. I mean, you look at some of the other comic book movies that have come out recently, like Guardians of the Galaxy and Ant-Man, and they have incorporated humor very well and made it work really well. But those are the kind of stories where you can do that. Superman is actually a very intense story about an alien who is trying to blend in with the human population, and if said alien ever realized, the godlike power and the amount of destruction that he can cause, and if his morals ever did change, and that's sort of some of the points that Lex Luthor has brought up over the years in the source material, and even in the first Richard Donner movie as well. So. It's one of those movies. A lot of DC movies seem to have more serious, a darker tone almost, as opposed to some
deeper
of them.
voices.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wasn't trying to shit on humor in comic book movies at all. Like it's just it needs to be done right. Like obviously,
exactly.
Superman 3, there's a scene where he flies through automatic photo booth, and you see Clark Kent changing, and this little kid's like, "Whoa, shucks!" And it's like, "Fuck." It's got nothing to do with the story. It's just like a dumb gag.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, like Marvel, I think they make a point of trying to inject as much humor as possible in their movies, and
it works well. It's very organic. It's not like it's not forced.
Yeah.
And with some of their characters, especially like I said, some of those newer characters that they've brought to the screen, the way those stories are, you're able to incorporate humor, and it works well. So
they even get away with doing some good like slapstick almost stuff, like physical comedy with the Avengers and stuff.
Oh yeah,
how they play off each other.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
There's that great moment where there's a lot of tension between Hulk and Thor, and after they take down that giant flying snake thing, they're standing there heroic, and Hulk just punches him out of frame.
Get him back from earlier, when they were on the helicarrier.
That's like Looney Tunes,
right?
Yeah,
but that's what I mean.
Works.
It's like cartoonish.
It works really well. Yeah.
And like Iron Man, obviously, was like a hilarious character when those first came out. They were like, it was like slightly almost raunchy. Just his behavior. And
just like a total arrogant playboy. Like Robert Downey Jr. really does arrogant extremely well.
Yeah.
I mean, the character wasn't too far of an offshoot of like how he acted in the 80s, where he'd just be like this drunk playboy kind of back then too.
Right.
It was probably the most perfect casting they could have done outside of Patrick Stewart being Professor X.
I remember when they were making an X-Men movie, I'm like, who else? They have to hire Patrick Stewart. They have to. If they don't hire him, you know what? I'm not going to watch a movie if they get someone else.
Yeah.
Like I was just so... And then they did it. I'm like, good, they listened.
Yeah, he was perfect. I actually really liked the casting for most of the X-Men characters anyways.
Yeah.
Maybe with the exception of, well, it's not even a casting issue, but in the first Wolverine, the X-Men Origins Wolverine, they didn't do Deadpool quite right. But they're fixing that. I've already seen. I'm sure you guys have all already seen the trailer. That's gonna be something to anticipate.
Sick.
Yeah.
So, but I guess moving right along. So we discussed the era of. The dawn of the Richard Donner Superman, and sort of the pioneer movie franchise that got things going, and then we mentioned Batman 1989, Tim Burton. His first two Batmans were for their time phenomenal. They really captured the essence of Batman really well. I mean, you look at Batman 1966, that was a very colorful, very fun, very lighthearted show, but it didn't really capture the essence of the Dark Knight. Bruce Wayne, as we all know, is a very tortured soul, and it's a very dark, gritty story. There's a lot of violence involved, and a lot of corruption and blood and what have you. And Tim Burton was the first director to really be able to showcase that on the big screen. Now, obviously, when Joel Schumacher took over the reins for Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, you got kind of a different feel with that. Things got a little goofier, a little bit more cartoony. I still like watching Batman Forever for kicks and gigs every so often.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, and as silly as it was still... The cast was still amazing. Outside of Chris O'Donnell, Tommy Lee Jones was an amazing Two-Face, and Jim Carrey is probably still my pick to play the Riddler at any given moment in time.
Well,
I think nowadays he'd make a kick-ass Riddler if they took away like the bright orange wig and stuff, and like let him have his natural hair, kind of.
Yeah.
Like this with the glasses, and just have him be like this like really creepy, geeky, like narcissistic, maniacal, like the Riddler is.
Yeah.
You know how I always thought they should do the Riddler is like if you want to go Christopher Nolan style with the Riddler, make him the Zodiac killer. Because that's what he is basically.
Exactly.
And just have him like bent on this whole like he gets kicks on people getting hurt, but he doesn't want to directly be responsible for it.
No, he's like Saw.
Yeah, very much like that.
It's
But,
very,
like,
very... In fact, it's funny you say that because I watched a documentary on the History Channel. Believe it or not, they had a Batman documentary on the psychology behind all the Batman characters on the History Channel, and they actually compared the Riddler to both the Zodiac and Ted Bundy.
Okay,
if you remember Ted Bundy, he was that serial killer who they couldn't catch for the longest time, and
he was so suave and you wouldn't expect.
Yeah, and so narcissistic about not being caught that eventually it caught up to him. And that's the same deal with the Riddler. He's so narcissistic that he has to leave a clue behind to say, hey, that was me. You know, same deal. Eventually he gets caught. So it's kind of cool because a character like that is extremely pertinent to real life. And yeah, exactly. If it was done in like the Christopher Nolan fashion where things are a little more realistic, that would be the perfect way to do it. So yeah, that's really cool. In fact, not to go on too big of a tangent on this, but they just came out, DC just came out with a new hardcover Batman story called Earth 1 Part 2, written by Jeff Johns, who's the creative executive officer of DC Comics.
Who, by the way, worked with Richard Donner. That's how he started his career.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. He started actually in the film industry, and now he kind of does a little screenwriting, a little producing, and a little bit of comic book writing. He kind of has his feet in all the different doors now. But yeah, brilliant man, and he wrote a Riddler story. It just came out like 2 weeks ago, and I just read it, and it was the best Riddler story. And Zero Year was, of course, great too, but this was just the best Riddler story. It was the most realistic. It was just like you were describing with this, this guy who's, I'll just give you one example. He crashes a whole elevator full of people. After he brings them up to the penthouse, he's got complete control of the elevator. He's not there. He's talking through the phone, the call box, and they don't get the riddle right, and he drops them 40 stories to their death. And he does things like that throughout the whole story. And he doesn't look like the traditional Riddler. He's got like this overcoat, and he's got this like question mark tattoo on his face, and he's like just looks like a madman. But like it looks a lot more realistic, kind of like those famous serial killers and that are real life stories, from our history. So it's really cool stuff. And I think if they use him in a movie again, it'll probably end up being a lot like that. Jeff Johns is supposedly writing a Batman trilogy, a solo Batman trilogy to go along in the DC extended universe with Ben Affleck. And I would not be surprised if a Riddler, that type of a Riddler, a real serious serial killer Riddler, shows up in that trilogy. So
yeah, you kind of have to. Like they brought the Joker back already, and it's just so it's been done so many times, and it's been like my favorite is Nicholson.
Oh yeah,
I love that Joker, but.
Talk about having humor in because I mean, aside from him, there isn't a lot of humor in DC stuff, but he was hilarious.
He was hilarious. Yeah, it was
in a very dark way.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think they hit like a lot of people shit on that '89 Batman movie. I don't know how you guys feel about it.
That was like
I love it.
Yeah, me too.
I remember watching that like as like a 5-year-old. It was amazing.
Yeah, so it's like obviously it's a little dated, but
For its time,
it's if you look at it just from that perspective, holy shit, it's a game changer.
Yeah.
It was. It was just like that year was Batmania. That was like the big thing that was going on that year.
My balloons.
Yeah.
He
took my balloons!
Why didn't you tell me I had one of those things? Yeah.
There's just so much that the Joker did in that movie that was just so darkly funny. It worked with the story. It wasn't just for the sake of a cheap joke. It was like, no, this guy's fucked up, and he does like my whole take on the Joker is like he's like Andy Kaufman if Andy Kaufman was fine with killing people, because if he could go that extra level, like wouldn't it be funny if like this guy slipped on a banana peel and then fell off a building and then snapped his neck? Wouldn't that be hilarious?
that's a wicked interesting description. And that would make a lot of sense. Actually, in The Killing Joke, Alan Moore's Joker origin that he wrote, the Joker was, in fact, Jack Napier is known as the Joker's alias. Sometimes they like to go with, an unknown origin of the Joker, but I like the Jack Napier origin. And he was a failed stand-up comedian,
right?
And he couldn't provide for his family, and so he turned to a life of crime, and joined the Red Hood gang, fell in the vat of toxic waste, yada 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 yada. So
they got to stop leaving those vats of toxic waste lying around.
Oh, geez, I tell you,
there needs to be. I mean, there's a new election season coming up, and I think that issue should be brought.
If someone
to the
had a
forefront.
position on vats of toxic waste, I think they'd really garner the vote.
What they also need to do is cage up all the radioactive animals that are giving people all these superpowers.
True, that too.
Yeah, but I mean, once you do that, then where are all the good story arcs going to come from?
You know what always pissed me off about Spider-Man, some versions of Spider-Man, is that he doesn't make his own web. Like, I hate hate
that too!
I hate the web shooters because it's like, wait a minute, how is he a spider without... That's the one thing that describes a spider, other than having 8 eyes and 8 legs, is that you make webs.
Well, I think in the animated
he doesn't have
series,
any of that.
I thought he made his own webs in the animated series,
In
right?
almost everything, he makes his own webs. Oh, I mean,
not the movie.
I'm sorry. There's mechanical versus organic. Almost everything is mechanical. One of the first times I've ever seen it organic was in the movie. Mm-hmm. The Sam Raimi movie.
Right. Yeah, the Tobey Maguire's. That's what they did it right. A lot of people a lot of people bitch about the third installment.
It was bad.
Well, the first movie was epic because it was just like, yep, Marvel is in the movie game now. Like Spider-Man, for all intents and purposes, is Marvel's Batman. He's that one flagship character that you be like, yep, that's the guy.
And you couldn't do him right, just like the Hulk. You couldn't do him right until, like, I bash on CGI, but some things you're like, well, yeah, you have to do that with, it's hard to. You can't get a man to run around the city like that.
No.
Oh, except for Lou Ferrigno, maybe. I don't know.
Well,
I'm just kidding.
Lou Ferrigno. See, that's the thing. Is like he's a big guy. He's as big as you get, basically. And they painted him green, and he still looked like a little turd.
Yeah.
Because like the Hulk needs to be the size of like a shed.
Yeah.
A very large shed. Yeah. Absolutely.
You can't be like even a very muscular man doesn't look like the Hulk.
Yeah. for all intents and purposes, I mean, they did the best they could with Lou, and it was for its time also a very good series. But
I think Brock Lesnar would play a good Hulk.
I think if they had to resort now to casting the Hulk as a human actor,
action.
absolutely. But luckily enough, CGI has its uses for things like that. So, we travel through time here through comic book cinema, and we get past the Supermans and the Batmans, and we enter the early stages of Marvel getting their shot at the silver screen. Blade, X-Men, Spider-Man, and Fantastic Four. I mean, those first two Fantastic Four movies, from what I understand, are a few hairs better than what just came out.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember you giving me a little bit of info because you had the luxury of going to see the new Fantastic Four movie.
Yeah, I'll see anything.
Yeah.
Well, you have to with your deal you get.
I know, I got the movie pass. I can see a movie a day.
Well,
so the problem with some of the early Marvel movies, because what you mentioned, or one of us mentioned, the levels of comic book cinema, like starts at Superman, and then you get Batman in '89, and then the X-Men, and then Iron Man. Before Iron Man was the first Marvel Studios movie.
Correct.
They made their own movie studio, and then they were like, "We're gonna do it right because you guys are really doing a bad job here." and so before that, like the Spider-Man movies and especially the Fantastic Fours, they're produced by this guy named Avi Arad. Yes,
who's also he was an editor at Marvel too for a time. I mean, I'm sure he knows comics, but
he's responsible for some good stuff, which I would only credit him for the good stuff being some of the animated '90s Marvel stuff, like the X-Men cartoon,
right?
But in the Spider-Man cartoon,
Spider-Man one, yeah.
But when he got his hands on movies, he's responsible for Daredevil sucking the first.
That's right.
He's responsible for Ghost Rider. He's responsible for Fantastic Four. He was like the guy. Like he hired the directors, the screenwriters, all that, and they blew. And he's like one of the reasons that Marvel Studios had to step in and be like, "Whoa, what are you doing?"
No
kidding. They sold the rights to all their big stuff, but
they figured, all right, let's hold on to what we have and make that good at least, and then little by little they're getting some of their rights back. We're lucky enough to get Spider-Man back in the.
They got that agreement with Spider-Man, and then
they got Blade back. They got Ghost Rider back.
Did they get Blade back?
They have it, yeah.
Oh, okay.
They got Punisher back.
They got Punisher back because he's gonna show up in the Netflix series
Daredevil
season 2.
Yep.
Cool.
And they obviously got Daredevil back.
They got Daredevil back, yeah. So they got, I think what they've done too is since they don't have Fantastic Four right now, they've taken Guardians of the Galaxy and they've sort of used that franchise as their outlet to all of Marvel's cosmic entities.
Yeah.
Because up until that point, Fantastic Four was always, the outlet to your Watcher and your Galactus and your Thanos and this and that. Well, not necessarily Thanos because he was a big Avengers villain too, but you get the idea. Skrulls, the Super Skrull, and what have you. So they're taking Guardians of the Galaxy and they're using that franchise, which is just red hot right now, to do the same thing, to introduce all these cosmic entities, space characters, if you will.
That movie, by the way, was great for the industry in general because they just stepped in and proved you don't need to take something that everyone knows. Because I didn't know what the fuck Guardians of the Galaxy was when I heard they were making that movie, and I was genuinely disappointed when I heard the announcement because there's so much stuff I would like to see first. I'd like to see Doctor Strange, which they're doing, but at the time it was way down the road. I'm like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
And then they proved like, no, you just need to tell a story the right way and it'll make bank. It's like one of the highest grossing movies in their studio and just of all time. And it was the highest grossing movie that summer, too.
That's right. And,
that was a really good year.
The casting was perfect. The characters and just their dynamic, it works really well with the banter.
Yeah.
And that provides a lot of comic relief. But at the same time, you get all these other different entities from Marvel's cosmic universe. And, you get the Nova Corps,
Yep.
you get the Kree Empire, you get Ronan the Accuser, and the Xandarians, and I could go on. But you wouldn't have that without Guardians, because Marvel can't get the rights to Fantastic Four anytime soon, from what I've heard.
Oh, there's like Sony for a while has been wanting to work with Marvel, so that's why they're sharing Spider-Man. But there's a really nasty grudge between Fox and Marvel.
Ooh.
Well, yeah,
They're,
well,
like,
that's
really
'cause
bad.
Fox has their hands on X-Men, one of the most successful Marvel properties there is.
Yep.
And Marvel begrudgingly, they can cut off Fantastic Four because there's no longer a Fantastic Four book. And there probably won't be for a couple years.
They stopped. That's one of their moves. Like they stopped printing that book because they didn't want to help the sales of the movie.
Right.
They were like, "Fuck your movie."
Right.
Another thing that they do, Marvel has the merchandising rights to all these properties.
Right.
They don't create merchandise for X-Men or Fantastic Four when Fox puts them out.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because
they can't begrudgingly. They're not. They still have to make X-Men books. They'd lose way too much cash in comic stores.
Yeah. But it's funny, they're doing well enough that they can take losses, because if Fantastic Four is such a well-known name, like canceling that book, I know they were saying that it wasn't selling well or whatever. They were taking a loss on purpose.
What they did was the characters are still very much involved in the Marvel universe. Characters like the Human Torch, Reed Richards, Invisible Woman, and the Thing have just moved on to other books.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, they stuck the Thing with Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yep, he's going to be
Oh,
in
that's
Guardians.
great.
Yeah, that's going to
awesome.
be cool.
The Human
Yeah.
Torch is going to be in the Uncanny Inhumans book. Reed Richards is always involved in every major Marvel arc, no matter what.
Yeah.
He's sort of like the scientific consultant.
He's the Illuminati guy, one of the Illuminati.
One
right?
of them.
Correct.
Between him and Tony Stark, they're like 1 and 1A as far as like who's the smart guy in the Marvel universe.
Right.
Hell, I would throw Hank McCoy in there too.
But he's too much of a softie to be an Illuminati.
Yeah, he definitely is.
Well, no. I
Well, he
mean,
was in
actually,
there,
all
but-
of them, all these guys were like Tony Stark,
Black Panther.
Bruce Banner, Namor.
Namor was the one that I was just.
Tony
I
St-
didn't
did I read-
understand. Why
I don't
was-
know anything about Nate. I know he's like has sharp ears. That's all I know.
He's basically like if Aquaman was a complete douche.
Uh-huh.
Like a complete douche. Like
Yeah.
not even just half a douche.
I guess
like,
he's like an Atlantean, but he's a mutant Atlantean,
Okay. Oh, that's cool.
and he's like the king of Atlantis. So
But why is he in the Illuminati? Like, why does
'Cause-
anyone even trust him?
Well,
Well,
I guess
I don't
you
know,
need
it's-
that world represented somehow.
yeah. I mean, he's just like the shady guy under the water. The surface world doesn't trust him, and they're kind of making decisions for everybody else, which is kind of like what their thing was before Secret Wars happened.
I know he's one of the very original Marvel characters and original superheroes.
Want to know what his name was?
What was it?
Seaman.
Seaman. Like the Dreamcast game?
Yeah.
Was that before he became the Submariner?
Was that it? Oh, maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, it might be Submariner.
Did I might have just made a joke and I didn't even know it.
Well, there was an old, very old book. It was like one of the first event books, and it was produced by Marvel. It was pre Stan Lee, and
Oh,
it
wow.
was
I really think it actually was the Submariner.
Yeah,
I don't know what the
probably.
hell I'm talking about.
No, it was. But
I'm not
that's all
wrong
right.
very often here on the podcast. I'll have to eat that one. Oh, my pride. It's so sore.
the
You could have just left it as, hey, as a joke. But
Oh, well.
well,
it's all
the,
good, though. I mean, we don't know everything about everything. That's why we're
Oh,
all here. We're going
when-
to put our heads together, and if one of us doesn't know something, someone else at the table is going to.
when
Yeah.
you're talking about pop culture, you probably like each week should preface the episode with corrections, because like I'm pulling stuff out of my ass. Like I assume I know this stuff, but
No,
I
we all are. Yeah.
I was like, I obviously care about it, but I'm gonna get names wrong and dates wrong and stuff like that because I'm not that autistic. but yeah, one of the original Marvel events was the Submariner versus the Human Torch, and it wasn't Johnny Storm Human Torch, same name Human Torch, but it was like a robot that turned into fire.
Yeah, he was a different guy.
And they fought each other.
That's right. The Human Torch was originally, and it was, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe he was the first character that Stan created.
I don't think.
Or no.
I don't think Stan created.
It was created before Stan. Stan
Yeah.
was the first to alter him and make him Johnny Storm.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Human Torch was one of the first Marvel characters.
Human
Yeah.
Torch.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah, before them, I guess in Stan Lee's documentary, he said something like, they'd be like, we'd make up a name, and we'd create a monster out of this. And I'd be like, this isn't very interesting. I have nothing in common with a giant-mouthed mud demon.
But yeah, I guess back then it was just like they had a certain formula where it was just like, Thor's gonna take down the big scary 3-headed monster.
Yeah.
And then everything will be okay. But then next issue there'll be a giant swamp monster or giant monster, and he's gonna
giant ice swamp.
Next week.
I have to say this about like some of what I consider these fringe characters. I know that you can go deeper outside of this, but like Thor, Iron Man, basically, except for Hulk, what the characters that ended up in the Avengers movie, like Hawkeye and Black Widow. Is Black Widow?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Black Widow.
Yep.
They first of all, I never gave a shit about them. and secondly, I considered them all like fringe characters except for Hulk. Like no one talked about Thor, or if you have a conversation about comic books, Thor would hardly ever come up. And then Marvel has the balls to be like, yeah, we're gonna make a Thor movie, and you're like, how? He just has a hammer. That's Thor. That's all of Thor.
Yeah,
and
I'm
they're
not
like, no, it's
familiar.
actually pretty interesting.
Well,
I
Thor
know
used to just
a lot of
be-
good Jack Kirby stories.
It's just
Yeah.
Thor used to be huge back in the day, but I see what you mean. Like during the '90s, like, well, what are the good Thor stories? What are the major story arcs he was in?
Yeah.
Go ahead, I'll wait.
Yeah,
and then you wait for
exactly.
like an entire day, and you don't get an
Yeah.
answer because no one's just really been that interested in the book. What Marvel's really done a good job of is just creating interest in these
They got it from me.
fringy characters. They
Like-
did. They called you up and they were
Yeah.
like, Mark, I don't know what to do. We got the properties to all these characters, but Fox is screwing up with all these movies and we
Yeah.
don't know what to do. What do we do, Mark?
No, I mean, like, they got I'm telling you the truth, I did not give a shit about Thor. Now I think he's so fun when I see him on screen. It makes me want to read the books. And same thing for Iron Man. Like, I remember I kind of liked the cartoon a little bit, but, I wouldn't bend over backwards for the guy. I didn't give a shit
Yeah.
about Iron Man.
Well,
But
that
then
book's about
Robert-
to get a lot better.
Is
Brian
it?
Michael Bendis is about to start writing it
Oh,
coming
cool.
this fall. So it's like,
Oh, and there's been great stories. Like, there's like Demon in a Bottle was one of the big ones. And then just the
Demon in the
premise
Bottle
of it.
was great.
Yeah.
can you
And-
fill me in? I'm not too familiar.
Well, that's the one that it basically deals with his struggle with alcoholism, which I think at the time there were a lot of comics that were dealing with drug addiction and alcohol problems and stuff like that. And he just gives up being Iron Man, and that's when War Machine comes in and takes over.
Right. Yeah.
Was that why he was in the suit for the original Secret Wars?
Right. Colonel Rhodes was Iron Man, but no one knew. Everyone, the Avengers and X-Men in Battle World, no one knew that it wasn't Tony Stark. That was back when there were a lot
Also,
of...
spousal abuse. That was another.
I believe that.
Ant-Man.
Ant-Man?
Yeah, Hank Pym. He beat his wife.
I believe it. I believe it.
They was like, let's get real. That was around the time of
Yeah. He was masquerading around his yellow jacket, and I guess I read the article on that. I guess what they meant to do was he accidentally hits her, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, how could you do this?" But it was supposed to be an accident.
Well, he had an
And-
anger problem.
And then the guy who ended up
doing letters.
doing the illustrating on that, the guy who wrote it's like, oh, and then the guy who was drawing it was like, all right, we're in the I don't know, whatever year it was. It was like, you gotta go big or go home. And he ends up like hitting her like with an overhanded fist as opposed to like struggle like, no, this is my microwave, and then accidentally like jerking it and like hitting her accidentally.
Okay.
So then he just changed it, so he was just like, whap, and then just like overhand.
He's got an angry face too in that panel.
Yeah, and he was very, very. I don't know why the Ant-Man had to change his name 15 times. He went from
Giant Man, Ant-Man,
the Yellow Jacket to oh my goodness, there's so many different that's just something gone wrong. You know, your character isn't very, very secure in his fans or anything if he keeps like changing his identity every like 5 years.
It was cool in the Ant-Man movie. They have Hank Pym and then Paul Rudd plays a different iteration of the character.
Yeah, it's like that in the books too.
The Hank Pym though has an anger problem. It was cool. Like he punches a guy out in the beginning of the movie. And
that's right. Yeah. Now, see, I for some reason always considered Hank Pym to be a mild-mannered science nerd of some sort. But I guess that wasn't a title that I had ever gotten into until right before the movie came out and they put out the book. It was Scott Lang being, the real center of attention. Second or Ant-Man.
The cartoons always have him as like the conscientious. Yes, objector. Yeah. The guy who's like always trying to avoid conflict and stuff.
He has that miniature prison, right?
Yes.
That's one of the coolest ideas. I only know about that. By the way, I've read a lot of comics. Very clearly not as many as you guys. Most of my knowledge comes from animated
that's where we started too.
I love the X-Men series, the Spider-Man series, the 90s stuff, and I anytime Marvel or DC puts out an animated feature, I'm all about it. And all of their TV shows like Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes.
Yeah.
And I think there was one just called Avengers, like they were back to back.
Avengers Assemble was better than Avengers Mightiest Heroes in my mind. Avengers Mightiest Heroes on Disney XD currently not as good as Avengers Assemble.
The Avengers Assemble was the first one.
That wasn't the first one. It was just it's a little more recent.
So Earth's Mightiest Heroes was the first one.
Well, no, Avengers Earth Might. Well, actually, was that the one that was on Fox with like, this isn't the Avengers, where's Captain America and Iron Man? Because the Avengers that was on Fox Saturday mornings originally was like Wonder Man, Ant-Man, Wasp, Hawkeye, Vision. Falcon. It was Avengers, but it was just like the Avengers Farm Club.
Yeah.
They're like not ready for the big leagues, and then like everyone's
the JV team. It's like, what is this? You're giving us the JV team.
That's what I was really.
The Pawtucket Avengers.
Yeah. I was so disappointed by that because when I heard that it was coming out on Fox, I'm like, oh, but it's gonna be awesome, like the X-Men cartoon.
When you say this, is it like very recently, like
this one that I'm talking about?
6 years.
The Farm Team Avengers was the one that it came out in like the late 90s and it didn't last very long.
Okay.
This other one, Avengers Assemble, came out in sometime around the 2000s.
That's the one you like.
That one is really, really good.
Okay, so
then there's the
Earth's Mightiest Heroes, because that one got canceled. It only lasted like 1 or 2 seasons. And they stopped, and then they were like Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes came right after that.
Yeah, well, Disney,
which I haven't seen. I've only seen Avengers Assemble, and I really liked it a lot.
Avengers Assemble is amazing. That's even on Netflix right now. It's only 2 seasons, but I think they covered most of the major story arcs that
they have
the Avengers have ever encountered in that. Yeah, and he's got the Ultron robots before the sentient one.
Yeah.
After like this other, that one is every bit as solid Avengers cartoon,
and they paced themselves too.
They took their time. There's some stories that you had to wait over time that built up.
Yeah,
that they're like, oh my god, that's from that episode. Like really good storytelling. Yeah, if you're gonna watch an Avengers cartoon, Avengers Assemble, and I'm pretty sure it's still on Netflix.
The only criticism I'll give is that the guy, and it was obviously a studio decision, but the guy that voices Tony Stark is just doing a Robert Downey Jr. impersonation.
It's kind of oh man,
it's very weird. It's it's like when they made the real Ghostbusters cartoon, they tried not to do that, and it works because they stand on their own in the animated version of it. But then when you try to knock off the movie version of something, it's just like distracts you.
I feel the same way like Batman the animated series. Like they had like, all right, well you're not playing Michael Keaton Batman, you're playing Batman.
Yeah.
And to this day, Kevin Conroy is the voice of Batman. I don't care
Batman.
who you.
He's the best Batman.
I don't care who you have playing Batman.
No, when I'm reading a Batman story arc, in my mind, like Kevin Conroy's voice is speaking Batman's lines. Yeah. Mark Hamill is speaking the Joker's lines. Like those voices are like ingrained in my mind, and I know I'm not the only Bat fan where that happens. Is it's just iconic voice talent. The best. It was almost like that series was like listening to one of those old school radio shows, but then you get this awesome animation that goes along with it. It's just it was a phenomenal success.
Oh well, I mean that cartoon was so ahead of its time. It's still better than a lot of the animation out there now. Almost every episode is like watching a tiny 30-minute movie.
Yeah,
and like from start to finish, they have everything that you need from the plot. They build up the characters enough through everything, and it's just excellent.
They scored those with a real orchestra. Like, no one does that anymore. They do it with movies, and that's it. But that's a big deal. And what Shirley Walker did a lot of that music. I listened to that shit in the car all the time. A while back, they were putting the albums out of the music from those cartoons.
Really?
Yeah,
that's
it was
awesome.
La La Land music.
I'd love to find that.
Well, here's the thing. I think they're still on there. They put them on Spotify, and it's like 3 or 4 volumes of just that.
That's great.
Yeah,
cool.
It's really good. And the crazy thing is you can hear her, and there's like a special track. I don't know if every one of them has them, but the one I have has a special track at the end.
Is she like barking orders at her orchestra?
Well, no, it's just her and a piano, and she's just explaining the theme. She's like, and then this, and then she kind of hits her with the piano, and then she's like, and then this, and she's so calm and light about it, and you're like, I'm listening to a fucking genius right now. It's just totally underappreciated. No one talks about her. She died, so she didn't really get to. She did a couple movies, sort of, but she's, I think it was like, probably some kind of cancer or something.
Well,
One of them.
Well, like some of the best creative minds of the age. I mean, they usually pass away before they're appreciated.
Yeah, no, it's so great. I wish I could find. I will find that, and I'll send it to you guys, because listening to how she explains it, how calm she is, but what's coming out of her fingertips, you're like, what the? It's good stuff.
Wow. No, I mean, if you watch the show, I mean, I watched a few episodes this morning. I mean, they even did a documentary. Eric Radomski, Bruce Timm, and Paul Dini, they spoke about when they got together and they first heard this orchestra play this music, and they were just so energized by it. There's like, this is like exactly what we're going for. And it's like when you collaborate on a creative project with someone and they totally understand what you're going for and they contribute to it in such an amazing way, there's very little better feelings than that. It's just it's something else. I'm sure we've all experienced something like that, whether it's making movies or comic books or whatever it is.
Right. Yeah, sometimes it's just perfect. Like, you guys have seen Dredd, right? That might be my favorite comic book movie.
It's just because it's such a good movie. It's actually it should be on my list. I did enjoy the 3D aspect of it.
They did a good job with that
in the theater, especially with that drug that they had that they were showing people doing.
Oh yeah, what was it called? Like slow-mo or something.
Slow-mo,
like
I think.
Is that what
yeah,
it is? Yeah,
I believe so. Yeah. The plot was really good. I mean, with the whole irradiated wasteland, like dystopian future.
Yeah.
Megapolises.
Megapolises, Mega City 1, Mega City 2.
Yeah.
And then you get the precognitive sidekick on her first day out. And, like, she just enters that Peachtree building, and it's just chaos. And it's just, like, at the end of her first day, she's like, nope. I'm all set. I do not want to be a judge. I'm gonna go do something else.
Yeah, it's great. They take so many different feels from like that movie's very RoboCop. It's very Escape from New York. It's very Die Hard. Like there's so many great movies, and they
with
just
the whole building aspect. Yeah, the Die Hard. Absolutely. Yeah, so many aspects. Yeah, that movie was way cool. Yeah. Coming up on the hour here, gentlemen, I do want to try to wrap up at least the
I think I've sidetracked you guys a lot.
No, but this is all pertinent. It's all good. Yeah. It's all good info. But I just want to quickly rattle off the rest of these comic book movie titles before we go on break. I'll just say the rest I got on my list right now. We mentioned how the Marvel Cinematic Universe evolved, through Iron Man and Thor, and then we got something really special in the Avengers, where you have, this interconnected group of a team on screen that hasn't really been done before, where all of these movies kind of intertwine in their plots. Mm-hmm. And they, every time.
So original.
Yeah, I mean, they did do a team type thing with Watchmen, but.
Right. But they didn't have their own separate movies.
Exactly. Well, yeah.
It's unprecedented.
It's unprecedented, and DC is going to try to follow suit, but it's definitely it's been a type of situation where it's really been a pioneer franchise for movie making, and for different continuities that can intertwine with your characters. You got all these characters that you can use in these years and years of source material to fall back on, and all these same characters keep popping up in each other's books, and then Marvel realizes, well, we can use that same formula for feature films. We can have Ant-Man pop up in Captain America Civil War, and I'm just throwing stuff out there.
Well,
we can have the Hulk pop up in Thor 3, or whatever, and it makes sense.
What's funny is, like, I had this notion a long time ago, and I thought it was the stupidest. I was like, why was I... When I saw the first Spider-Man movie, there's a scene, I'm sitting in the theater, there's the towards the end of the movie, Green Goblin is I think Spider-Man's in a position where he has to choose who to save. He's like holding two groups of people, and he can only save one. And Green Goblin is that they're on the bridge. He's about to like just ruin shit for him, and all of a sudden something hits Green Goblin's head. And I'm sitting there in the theater, and I'm like, wait a minute, was that Daredevil? Was that like his staff,
Yeah.
And then I'm like, no, that's stupid. That would be dumb. That would be stupid, because it would just be nuh-uh. And then like 10 years later or more, like 15 years later, all of a sudden it's like, well, why isn't Daredevil in this movie?
Because it makes sense, and fans are going to want to see that. Yeah. And, the interesting thing about that is all of those Netflix series that are going to be coming out, Daredevil, obviously, and all the characters within Daredevil, Punisher, Elektra, what have you, along with Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, Iron Fist, they all have contracts to be in the Marvel movies as well.
That's a great thing with Marvel. Like, lock naive people into contracts that they are forced to follow for like 20 years.
Oh yeah.
That's the only way you can make this stuff
I'm going to
happen.
make a star out of you.
Yeah.
And you're going to be indebted to me.
Are you
for the
sure,
rest of your
mister?
life.
Okay, well, you seem nice enough.
I'm kind of surprised Vince McMahon isn't behind the
I was
Marvel
gonna say-
Cinematic Universe.
I was going to say, like, well, that's like the same type of feeling with me in wrestling, like back in the day, back in like the late 90s, when you'd have someone like Razor Ramon, like Scott Hall and Kevin Nash going over to WCW from WWE. It's like, oh my God, what's going on? This is crazy.
Yeah.
What are they're not supposed to be there.
Yeah.
They're over here.
Yeah.
But now they're over there now.
It shocks the public. It shocks
Yeah.
it shocks the fans. And,
It's like, how are they going to interact with these characters now? Ooh.
and now we're seeing the same thing on the DC side, where you're gonna see Batman popping up in Suicide Squad, and Aquaman and Wonder Woman popping up in Batman vs Superman, and the
Which,
Flash.
by the
and-
way, I hate that was spoiled. Batman and Suicide Squad. It's like set pics from Suicide Squad.
yeah, I know,
Like,
I
oh,
know.
come on. That'd be such a cool, even if it's like at the beginning of the movie, it'd be so cool to see that on your own, you know?
Yeah, I'm kind of guilty of spoiling things for myself by going on the internet.
Well, but you shouldn't be like a lot of times they don't tell you spoilers. They act like it's not spoilers.
I know.
And I read tons of stuff about movies all the time, but you like the one Star Wars.
I've made it a point to absolutely avoid most of the. I've watched the first 2 trailers. Now
Yes,
I am absolutely leaving it alone.
Yeah, same here.
I want to be. I want it to come to me naturally, and I want to find out everything as it comes, and not be like one of those guys who's like, "Whoa, well, this might be a leaked script. It might not be a leaked script, but I'm going to read it anyway."
I had a friend who
Yeah.
would read the novelizations of any movie, like big movie, comic book or whatever that would come out, because novelizations are based on the screenplay. They give the screenplay to the hack author, and they pump out a novelization. So he would read those for spoilers. And yeah, but I'm with you on Star Wars. Like, I know there will be 1 or 2 more trailers. Not watch them.
Yeah, I'm with you guys on that. Although I did really enjoy the teaser, but it really gave too much away
Already.
for me.
Yeah, already. Like, they
yeah.
showed Vader's mask. I'm like, oh, now I know he's somehow involved.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, I know. What the hell?
Yeah, it's like the most important franchise of my childhood.
I
This
couldn't.
is a very important movie for me
Yeah.
when it comes out.
It's going to be hard to
I couldn't
see
believe
it.
the crossover that they did in Ant-Man. They had Liberace
Yeah.
in Ant-Man. I was like, wow, I didn't know he was in this universe. But the funniest thing about that is,
Ant-Man versus the Great Liberace.
but Michael Douglas in Behind the Candelabra, Matt Damon's character is named Scott, also, as Paul Rudd's character is named Scott. So he kept going like, Scott. And I kept thinking of Liberace. Like it's Liberace going like, good morning, Scott.
Oh, man.
And that's all I could think about when he said Scott.
So, one more set of movies that I just want to discuss here before we move on is the DC films that have led up to the beginning of the DC Extended Universe or DC Cinematic Universe.
None of which exist yet.
Well, except Man of Steel.
Yeah, it's just only by happenstance.
By happenstance, yeah.
You know, they're like, we're gonna turn this into a universe. Like, they didn't have the plan because they're fucking greedy, and they they rush movies. Marvel was doing it while they were putting out some of the Batman movies. They should have just gone, fuck, we got to do that, and we got to do it with Christian Bale.
Well, I think
I agree 150% actually.
they were doing it, but I think what they really wanted was because the Batman movies that Christopher Nolan directed are so dark and so on their own. They're going to compartmentalize that because they want something that would be appropriate for a child to come and see, and therefore
I don't know though,
make
man.
it so that action figures could be made and things could be bought.
Yeah, I mean, I get
The Christopher Nolan Batman movies are super dark. If anyone brought their kids to that, they're an idiot.
If you guys have seen, the trailer though for Batman vs Superman,
it does look pretty.
It's pretty
grim.
damn grim. I mean, you got Batman snapping the necks of those, and then there's where I'm like, I really hope they don't deviate from the source material too much, because Batman isn't supposed to be killing anyone. But you got him snapping the necks of that special ops team with the Superman
Which,
logos.
by the way, that one shot sold me on this movie. Because I was gonna see it no matter what, but I was bummed out when I heard that they're gonna like bum rush an entire universe. Wonder Woman's gonna be in it, Cyborg's gonna be in it, Aquaman's gonna be in it.
Flash,
Well, if they're gonna start everything off, they should have just called it what it is.
Yeah.
Well,
They call it Justice League.
Right.
Well. Hold on. Hold the stat gate here for 1 second, because from what I understand, most of those characters, with the exception of Wonder Woman, in that movie apparently have very, very small cameos.
Good.
It's sort of something where like Batman is discovering all of these metahumans, and he's like watching the Flash on a screen, or like Aquaman's on a screen or something, or there's like one scene. Like, it's not something where like, at the end of the movie they're all gonna get together and fight together as the Justice League. But I think it's like very like subtly introducing the other characters so that they can have the next installment be Justice League. So
it's kind of like how Robin was introduced in Batman Forever, and then the next one was Batman and Robin.
Yeah.
Yes, but even like less screen time than that. Like like these characters like Cyborg, the Flash, and Aquaman, like they're supposedly, and this is all hearsay because you can't believe anything you read on the internet, but from what I've read, and I've read a lot of articles, they're not supposed to really have a lot to do with the movie, which is a good thing. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You don't want to cram all those characters in there. That sucks.
I just want to see, because it's never happened. I just want to see Batman and Superman, and you can have Lex Luthor, you can have a few other characters, but I just want to see Batman and Superman.
Yeah, they're cramming Doomsday in too, and I don't know. I mean, like,
there's a rumor. I mean, I hope it's not true, because I think it's a little. It's like some ideas can work, but you need to very slowly submerge us into it. You can't just be like, and Doomsday.
Yeah.
Because, it's like, no, I'm an idiot, and like you got to feed me things very slowly or I'll choke. So. Like Batman and Superman, that's enough for me. That's a meal. If you put something else in there,
that's a very large 3-course meal, I'd say.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, Zack Snyder consulted with Frank Miller upon getting production rolling, and it's supposed to stay very true to The Dark Knight Returns.
That's cool. Yeah.
And if it does, and it looks like it is, from what I've seen, the footage that they've put out, then it should do the source material justice. So, I mean, none of us will know for sure till it comes out. But,
well, I was saying that shot where Batman is in the desert taking those guys out.
Yeah.
When I saw that, I went, all right, this movie is being made by someone who wants to try things different visually and experiment. A lot of times they, this is like a $200 million plus movie, so a lot of times you don't even have the opportunity to experiment. Now, pitch fucking Batman in a desert with a coat, Batman with a coat
and the goggles,
goggles. Pitch that to someone, and they're gonna be like, "No, that's not Batman. Can't be in the movie." Like, so you kind of have to have. I don't know what it is. I have no idea what the context of it is, but
I don't even either.
The fact that it's in there tells me that they're like, "Yeah, I want to try this. I want to see Batman in the desert." I'm like, you know what? I do too.
Well, if you follow the Batman mythos,
I want to see Batman in the desert.
If you follow the mythos, I mean,
I want to see Batman with the cowl without a shirt,
fighting Ra's al Ghul with a sword.
Yeah, Batman chest hair all cut up and shit,
and in the desert, having a sword fight with Ra's. Yeah,
muscles rippling.
Yeah,
and that's what I was getting at. Is throughout the years and years of Batman mythos, it's mainly pertained to Gotham City, but not always. Batman, as you know from The Dark Knight, he has no jurisdiction.
Yeah.
He will find you and he will make you squeal.
I want to see Batman on a horse.
Yeah, like from The Dark Knight Returns.
Batman on a horse was a scene.
I want to see Batman on a train.
Well, he's done that too.
Batman in the original screenplay.
Watch Batman Begins and you can see that. Yeah.
In the original screenplay for the '89 Batman, the Sam Hamm, who's awesome, the screenwriter for that, he had a scene where he's riding a horse. but I don't know if they shot it, but obviously they didn't put it in the movie.
I could totally see like a scenario where like, you got the Riddler and he's blacked out Gotham City or something, and Batman's on horseback and he's it's so cool.
They owe it to us.
I think they do.
I want to see Batman on a boat. I want to see Batman in a moat.
Yeah.
I want to see Batman in a box. I want to see Batman with a fox.
You're saying that ironically, but I do want to see all that.
I want to see Batman with green eggs and Sam Ham.
Green eggs and Joker toxin.
Sam Ham I am.
So, I just want to mention the Dark Knight trilogy super fast here before we go on break. Obviously, Batman Begins, in my opinion, one of the best superhero movies of all time. It was the most not the most down and dirty, but it was just a down and dirty, gritty Batman story.
Very tight storytelling too.
Absolutely. Very good usage of the Scarecrow, very good usage of Ra's al Ghul. It followed the origin of Bruce Wayne very well. I can't say enough about it. I love what they did with Arkham Asylum. It was a key component to that movie with the fear toxin and the electromagnetic whatchamacallit that spreads it with the through the air. That movie changed a lot. Brought Batman back to his dark roots again after the Schumacher films and whatnot. And then obviously following suit, The Dark Knight. I mean, you can't really say too much that hasn't already been said, but one thing I will say is David Goyer drew most of the material for that script from Jeff Loeb's Long Halloween and Dark Victory, which are two of the best all-time Batman story arcs you'll ever read. And all that stuff with, Jim Gordon, Harvey Dent and Batman on the rooftop, scheming and planning about how they're going to take down the mob and take down Maroni and all this and that. And the stuff with the Joker, all of that is just drawn out of those two books marvelously. And because they stuck to that source material so well, and also because of the way the movie was shot, the way it was casted, the way it was directed and produced, it was my favorite comic book movie of all time.
Also, there's a lot of references to GCPD in that movie, in the Dark Knight.
The Gotham Police Department?
Yeah. Is that what it's called, that comic?
Gotham City Police Department.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I believe it's called Gotham Central.
Oh, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, Gotham Central.
Specifically? No.
Yeah, Greg Rucka
I remember
wrote
there were like flat out scenes in that movie that were in those books.
Yeah.
And some of the ones that I read, I haven't read all of them.
Oh, there's like 6 installments, but yeah.
Oh, that's it? Well, then I might have read them all.
You might have, yeah. No, they drew a lot of the stuff, the interdepartmental corruption and all that from Gotham Central, too. So when you got someone like David Goyer, who actually has a lot of experience writing comic book movies to begin with, and, he paid such close attention to those important books, you have a masterpiece.
Yeah.
And, Dark Knight Rises, I thought it was good. Wasn't quite as good as the other two.
Yeah, a lot of people hated that. I defend that movie all the time.
I do too, because
I think it was so ambitious. Like, yeah, it's flawed, but it's shooting for the stars, and there's just so many interesting moments in that. And Bane visually and his voice is very iconic, and there's just there's great messages in there. And I love that they reestablish the hero's journey. They knock Bruce Wayne the fuck down, and then they make him climb his way back up.
And that's the thing.
Literally.
Yeah, it was a good movie. I think people's major beef with that flick was that of the potential that it had of what it could have been.
Right. But people nitpick it, and it bums me out because they're like, they say things like, well, Batman wouldn't stop. And it's like, your Batman in the comics you've read, maybe not, but in the story that's being told here, he ends crime in the city. Like, he's not going to go out and stop people from robbing 7-Eleven. He can't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's for police. He ended organized crime in the city. There's nothing going on. And there's even reference to it. Like, Alfred says something. Like, it's all done. You got to start your life up again.
Exactly. But
so
he's
it's
so
like,
addicted to being Batman. He doesn't know anything else.
And
yeah.
I like that the movie basically concluded with it. This is a story about Bruce Wayne. This guy, Batman, is an affliction. Really, it's good for all of us. Not good for that guy. It tears him apart. Like if he still has that in him, it's all he's ever going to be thinking about. He needs to let it go. If you care about that character, if you want to give him a happy ending. It's the only way you can give him a happy ending is if you let him stop being Batman.
Oh, you took the words right out
so
of
it's not
my
just
mouth.
me. Okay.
Yeah, no. That is an absolute perfect analysis of what Nolan was going for. It is a Bruce Wayne story. It is about the addiction to the cape and cowl.
Yeah.
It is 100%, and the underlying theme is addiction and split personalities.
Yeah.
You know, it's the same. It's a similar concept to somebody who's trying to kick heroin. Bruce Wayne is trying to kick Batman, but he can't. So he sits in the house. You know, if you've read Nightfall too, which is like the first big Bane story, I haven't read it yet, but
I've only read like the big moments in there because I remember when it's like, oh, Batman got killed. Did you hear? Or injured or whatever. So I remember picking those up when I was like a little kid. And I also remember, was it Azrael? Is that the...
Yep.
Yeah, I remember watching him beat Robin up. And then I also remember buying the Robin spinoff, and he's like, fuck you, Azrael! And he got his own book for a little while.
Yeah. But there's so many elements, apparently, from Nightfall that they used in Dark Knight Rises, particularly with, then I will break you. First I will show you where I've made my home.
Yeah.
Then I will break you. And, he breaks Batman's back in Nightfall, except in Nightfall, he breaks Batman's back, sends Bruce Wayne down to the gutter, and then he's out of commission for some odd years. Whereas they instead had him out of commission from the get-go, where he's not seasoned and he's not in his prime like he was in The Dark Knight, so he's not ready to go up and confront Bane, and he gets his back broken then has to, but it's still the same underlying theme. So
there's No Man's Land too. That was a big influence.
Huge, yeah.
Which I love. That's one of the things I love about Dark Knight Rises is that the bad guy wins. Like halfway through the movie, bad guy won.
Yeah.
If this was anybody else's movie, the climax of it would have been him preventing Bane from taking over the city. They give him the city. They turn it into chaos, like it's borderline post-apocalyptic.
Big time,
And that again, you gotta have a set of balls, or at least an imagination, to be like, well, what if? Because every superhero movie always ends with the bad guy almost doing something that could affect the world, but they stop him. Well, what if he did? Then what after? And that's kind of...
It's almost like he's doing damage control from that point on to try to get things back somewhat to some sort of order.
And it's like, again, great stories are told when you have great conflicts. So beat the shit out of your main character, take away their city, kill the people they love, break their back, and
then watch them.
They go from here.
Yeah, watch them overcome that adversity and come back, and I'm right along with you with The Dark Knight Rises. It couldn't have been a better analysis if I said it myself. So with that, gentlemen, any other comic book related movies we want to discuss, or?
We got a good history going, good history lesson going through that. Let's take a break and gear up for the second half of the podcast.
All right, we'll hit a break and we'll be back.
You know what's great? This is the best part about podcasts. Just getting together. We don't know what's going to happen. We're just with our friends. It's after work. You guys should come to Hotcast. Got great subs down the street. Parking wasn't bad at all. Someone already paid for mine. It was an hour and 8 minutes in there. Got here. My friends were here. Same time. Now we're just hanging out. Come to Hotspot Podcast. Get yourself a good old-fashioned sub. Hotcast Hotcast Podcast. Come to Hotcast Podcast and enjoy the show. Come to Hotcast Podcast and enjoy the show. This is it. Like, this is what we do now. Nothing better than just hanging out with some friends. You know what? Hotspot Podcast. Is that what it is? Hotcast Podcast. Check it out online. All I know is Hotcast Podcast, one of the best places